Hi there, Rick Yon speaking. Well, we're still in isolation, and we probably will be like this for a number of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. But we really have it easy in comparison with a lot of other people around the world. I mean, we still can get our food. We still can contact our friends. We may not be able to go to them and put our arms around them, but through social media, we can interact with one another. But I'm reminded of the Apostle Paul near the end of his life. There he is sitting in prison. Only Luke is with him, and you remember Luke. He is the writer of the third gospel and also the book of Acts. A number of his people left him, some on missionary journeys, but a man by the name of Demas, who saw the power of God in Paul's life, a man whom Paul was mentoring. He left the Apostle Paul there in prison because he loved the present world. But what I want to bring your attention to is what Paul was really looking forward to. One was a companionship. Secondly, was something to keep him warm. And thirdly, something that he really loved. Listen to these words in 2 Timothy chapter 4. He says, "Get Mark. Bring him with you, because he is helpful to me in my ministry." Now, that's a mouthful, because if you remember in the book of Acts, Barnabas and Paul had gone on the first missionary journey, and they brought with them a man by the name of John Mark, a young man. But young John Mark left them on that first missionary journey and went back home. Well, that didn't sit too well with the Apostle Paul. So when it came to the second missionary journey, Barnabas wanted to bring John Mark with him again, and Paul says, "No way." Because Barnabas and Peter built into the life of John Mark, we have a fourth gospel. We have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Otherwise, we only would have had three. And then he goes on to say, "I send Tychicus to Ephesus, and when you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas." The Apostle Paul was cold. He needed something warm. So first he was looking for a good friend of his, John Mark. Secondly, something to keep him warm, that cloak. And then he says, "And my scrolls, especially the parchments." You see, when Paul was writing this, there was no New Testament. There was only what we call the Old Testament. And the Apostle Paul did not have the entire Old Testament. But he said, "I want those scrolls," and he was talking about the scrolls that were, well, they were made of papyri. And that's sort of brittle. And he may not have had all of the parts of those scrolls. But then the parchments were animal skin, and they would have lasted much longer. So bring me the scrolls, especially the parchments. You see, the Apostle Paul knew that he was going to meet the Lord soon, but he wanted to be reminded of God's love for him. And I'm sure that some of these scrolls would have included the Psalms and a number of the prophets. I know when I went through a difficult time years ago, I focused on the Psalms and the prophets, because in the Psalms I saw the heart of God. And in the prophets, I saw the mind and the wisdom of God and the plan of God, knowing that he had my future at heart. He knew what my future was going to be, just like he knew the entire future. And I want you to be aware of the fact that God knows the future. He knows how long this virus is going to last. He knows when you and I can get out and be with our friends again. But rather than focusing on what we don't have, why not focus on what we do have? We do have friends that we can communicate with. We have our family. We have warmth. And we have the scrolls and the parchments. So why not focus on those scrolls and the parchments, what we call the Word of God, and focus on His love for you, His concern for you, the wisdom, the plans that He has for you, and know that you're not alone. You may be isolated, but the Lord is right there with you. Thanks for watching.